Hello, welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I'm so excited that you're here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jen Lockhart Grant, and I'm excited to talk to you today. And I'm going to share with you, we're going to talk about something that I've talked about actually on the podcast before, but it is such an important piece of my journey and just as such an important piece to like transformation that I just feel like it's important to share and sometimes share again and again and again and again because we all need these reminders. And, Tony Robbins says repetition is the mother of skill. And it's just so important. We're gonna take this episode today. So I'm super excited to talk to you. And so let's just, get started, I suppose. So I want to talk to you today about drum roll, gratitude. All right, gratitude, and how I truly believe gratitude is the gateway to happiness, success, joy. Gratitude is the gateway. It is what makes what turns it's the cure to depression, anger, sadness, all of it. And when I first heard, this idea that gratitude is the gateway, it actually made me angry because at the time of my life when I started leaning into how to change my life, and I was listening to some different YouTube videos and different mentors and stuff like that. And, they're all saying gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. And I'm like, how the freak am I supposed to focus on gratitude when my life is seriously falling apart and in shambles? Like, what do I have to be grateful for? Like my relationship was kind of non-existent as much as like we were roommates, not lovers. Um, I was drinking every single night and getting almost blackout drunk. I was, I hate to admit, but even at this time, like I was a new mom and which was not good for me with the drinking, especially because it created a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of depression. And I was a waitress, and I didn't really have much going for my life. So it was like, what was there for me to be grateful for, right? And so it kind of made me angry to the point where it's like, you know, only the good, the people that have good get better, right? And it's like, how am I supposed to, what does this mean? And so like I said, it made the idea of this made me angry. And but like I said, at the time, I was in a lot of pain. And so there comes to a point, I think, in most of our lives when we realize that if things keep going the way they're going, it's not going to be good. Like something has to change. And, when you don't know what you don't know, when I talk about surrender, it truly means like surrendering to a process, which means finding people who have what you want and learning from them and doing what you want to do. And so, at the time, I really just wanted to be happy, but I didn't know how to achieve that happiness. I also didn't really know what that looked like. Um, and so that's what I was praying for at night. Like, I just want to be happy. And so I found happy people who had the lives that I wanted. And I started, putting myself in their energy, basically. And, and I noticed what they were doing. And I will tell you, a lot of them were being very intentional about where they're putting their focus, gratitude. And so my mentor, my very first mentor said, Jen, you need to start shifting like what you're focusing on, and you need to start doing gratitude. And like I said, I was, I want to roll my eyes because I'm like, I got nothing to be grateful for here. Like my life is a mess. But I decided to trust the process. And so I look back, and one of the very first things I did on my journey to becoming who I am today is I actually did start a gratitude journal. And so every morning I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to trust this process and I'm just going to do it. And so I started this journal and I decided every morning I was going to write down 10 things that I'm grateful for. And so I started doing it every morning. I'd get up, hungover, and I just grab my journal and I'd write 10 things I'm grateful for. And they would be things like I'm grateful for my phone, I'm grateful for my son, I'm grateful for my bed, I'm grateful for the fact that I have a job. Like, and I just started, I'd write down 10 things. And then I would put my journal away and I wouldn't look at it again till the next morning, right? Actually, I'd put my journal away and then I'd go on about my day, continue to be drinking every single night, and then pick it up again the next morning. So it was like my external life wasn't shifting much, but what I was focusing on was the internal shifts here. So this gratitude journal was the allowing me to make the internal shifts that were needed to then create the external shifts that I wanted. But I suppose I'll get into that in a minute. But so I just started doing the gratitude journal and I even made it fun where like I would get my son who was around 2 at the time to also do gratitude with me. So like, Cameron, what are you grateful for? And he like dinosaurs and elephants and Paw Patrol. And it was like super cute, but we just made it fun. And so I noticed though that, like I was saying, my external life wasn't changing much at this time. Like I was still drinking. My marriage was still roommates that we kind of just existed in each other's space. I was still a waitress, still felt a lot of guilt and shame. But as I was trusting the process and doing my gratitude journal daily, um, I noticed that actually things were starting to shift. Not the external things, not my circumstances, but the way that I started to view my circumstances, things started shifting. Because instead of waking up in the morning thinking about all the shame and guilt and lack and depression and how crappy my life was, instead of waking up and focusing immediately on that, I was waking up and starting to see some of the good that was in my life. Because even though my life was in shambles, actually there was actually a lot of good there that I wasn't even seeing because I wasn't paying attention to it, right? And once I started paying attention to it, like everything started to change because it was, I started to see it, and the more I would see, the more I would see. And I actually started feeling a lot better inside. Not because really the external was shifting, but because I was shifting and starting to see everything different. What was changing the way I was feeling about everything. So I was going from, this person that would just wake up and look at my life and think, God, this freaking sucks, to waking up and looking at my life and saying, wow, like I actually have a lot to be grateful for here. Right. And I realized as I was going through this process like there's a difference in being like, well, gratitude, you know, is is not necessarily something that you get when things happen, but gratitude is actually something that you can access anytime. And so it was like I stopped having to wait for things to happen to be grateful for, and I just started accessing gratitude. And this being able to access gratitude, no matter what my external circumstances look like, was the shift that I needed to completely change my life. It was the idea that you can access the gratitude. And once I started realizing like I can act like this is what like you say it's already in you. Like this is within you. You just need to pull it out. Like this is part of that. It's like no matter where our life is and how shambles it shitty it looks, it's like there is some good. And so most of us are waiting for things to happen before we can become grateful. And the idea is no, we access the gratitude now, and then everything on the outside begins to shift. And that's exactly what started happening for me. Like the more I lived, accessed gratitude, and began to live in a deeper state of gratitude, I eventually, became the person that didn't even need the alcohol anymore to numb from the pain I was feeling because I wasn't feeling the pain anymore because I was accessing the state of gratitude now. Right. And so this internal shift I was having, not only, it allowed me to change my behaviors trying to numb the pain I felt that I was actually no longer feeling. It was like because nothing on my outside world was changing, but like I said, my insides were changing, and the insides alone was enough to start shifting the way I was living. And so, I started my gratitude journey in 2015. This was one of the very first things I started doing. And, by 2018, I was sober. And it all started with this internal shift, right? This internal shift of gratitude allowed me to, not be so angry about everything. And when I wasn't focused on anger, I wasn't manifesting as much anger in my life. And so I started becoming this person that could truly see the good even in the shit, which brought me more good, more opportunities, experiences with people who are also now vibrating on the same frequency of gratitude and appreciation. And so, I'm just when the more that I think about this, the more even grateful I am for it all. Because it really does, show that we have more power than we think to shift our situations, to change things. And rather than waiting for things outside of us to change, we just start doing the inner work. It's not necessarily about, the energy isn't let's change our life. The energy is let's start loving the life that we're in and then watching everything fall into place like miracles. That's what happens when you start to do the work. And it's actually really gets to be really, really fun. I say that all the time, like it gets to be fun. And it is. It is fun watching the shifts happen, but it's this internal shift that needs to happen first that will create a ripple effect for everything. So, even my internal shift of gratitude. So I began changing who I was inside, which was reflecting my outer world. And I will tell you, one of the negative parts to this is that if you are living in a state right now where your life is a mess, but you are also connecting with other people whose lives are also messes, when you start to shift your internal being, you begin to grow. And what happens is the people that aren't on this journey with you of shifting with you, they begin to look at you different, which is why a lot of times I don't want to scare anybody away, but when you start this work, you do tend to lose, some people fall out of your life because you no longer are aligned with each other. And like I said, as I was becoming, living more in a state of gratitude, I was no longer aligned with people that were in a state of, anger, lack, complaining, judging, it just wasn't. And so as I started to glow up and grow, I started losing people. I started losing friends. Um, I started it kind of felt I felt very alone, actually. And it was that was a hard time of my life because it was like I had such a desire to grow and be happy and love my life, but at the same time it was hard because it was lonely. Because I didn't feel like I had many on the journey with me and I was losing people. My quote unquote friends began looking at me like, Jen, you think you're better than all of us? And especially when I stopped drinking, it was like, all my friends that were in that space now, couldn't see me anymore because I was a reflection of what they weren't doing. And so it did get to be very lonely. And they say growth can be lonely. And I think losing people is a painful part of growth, but it's a necessary part. Um, and I remember calling one of my mentors and saying, like, I don't know what to do. I feel so alone. Everybody hates me. Um, and she just told me, she said, Jen, I promise you, like, you will make new friends, people who are more aligned and go like on the same journey. And so I said, okay, and another, I got to get off the phone with her and trust that, like trust the process that I would even make new friends, people who are more aligned with me. And I will tell you now that she was right. um, I've made a lot of new friends. Like all of my friends now are on the growth path, pretty much. I still, have friends who aren't there yet, but I am surrounded by people who are motivated to improve and get better and love their lives and grow, and they're like all about the journey with me, and it's fun. And so you do begin to attract, which is, one reason why I love the group that we've created, Evolution. It's because if you are on the journey, you don't have to do it alone. Like you can surround yourself with people that are also on the path, and then they become your friends. If plug in, right? You plug in, and next thing you know, you're doing what they're doing and you're living how you want to be, and you're surrounded by people doing the same thing, and then it's really fun. And so, that's what we do, but gratitude truly was the gateway to all of this. It was the gateway to me changing who I am, becoming the person that I am today, and truly, looking at life through a different lens. And the more that I access gratitude, the better my life gets. And so, I even tell some of my clients, like, if you are, because some of them, even though we're all on the journey, we still have wobbles, I call them like wobbles, where things happen, because like this is literally just life, and things happen. It's not always quote unquote perfect, but we have wobbles, and sometimes the wobbles will if life feels wobbly, are you focusing on gratitude? Are you asking the good questions that give you good answers that make you feel good? Like, where is your focus during the wobble? Because that really does determine how you move through it. And so one of the things we do is, like, I even have told some girls, even just this week, I'm like, have you ever done a float tank? I said, what, one of my favorite things to do is get in one of those tanks, because I get to put my phone away for an hour. So I have no distractions. And you're just like stuck in this tank with your thoughts. And to really intentionally focus my thoughts on gratitude, and really, spend an hour just in the state, intentionally in a state of gratitude, so you can really shift and embody like the energy that you're living in, what you're projecting, and like your entire life will begin to change the more you access gratitude and put yourself in a state of gratitude, even if life is hard around you, even if everything is in shambles. Like my life felt like it was in shambles 10 years ago when I was an alcoholic waitress, walking on eggshells at home, depressed, feeling shameful, guilty, sad. Like I felt like my life was in shambles, but this idea where I could access gratitude regardless. And by accessing, everything begins to shifting. So it's not always about, you know, changing your life, making big moves, big scary moves. It doesn't have to be like that. Sometimes it's as simple as like, are you being grateful today? Did you, focus on some gratitude today? And start to shift your lens to see the good. And when you begin seeing more good comes. And it's true and it works. And this is the process. When they say trust the process, this is part of the process and it's a huge part of it. What you focus on determines how you feel. What you focus on determines the energy and what you receive back. There's so much inside of all of this, and it's so fun. And I mean, I guess no matter where you're at in your life right now, whether you are just starting this journey or you've been on it for a long time, like, gratitude is important. And maybe this is a reminder to you to tap in as much as you can. And if you are feeling burnt out, overwhelmed, like what you're doing is not enough, like get back into gratitude and then and move forward from that place. You can tap into it at any time. And like I said, once I realized that, like my whole life shifted. And yeah, it's really amazing. So I suppose I will leave you at that, with that. And if I always like to plug in evolution at the end of these podcasts, or really whenever I can, because I am so um, grateful for what we've created. And I just feel so, I don't even know what the word is. I feel so like I'd be doing a disservice if I'm not telling you about it, because, if you're on this journey and feeling alone, you need support. If you are on the journey and, you just want more and you don't know, where to move from here, like come get the support. Be surrounded by people who are on the same path. Like we are not just focused, we're very focused on creating incredible relationships in our group, learning the skills, embodying, shifting the energy, but sometimes part of creating the life that you want, it, like I said in this video, is not just about making the big moves. Sometimes it's about tapping into a higher frequency so you can begin to attract and see things different and allow things to unfold in a way of miracles that you can't receive using strategies from textbooks in a way. Maybe gratitude is a strategy. Gratitude is a strategy. But, coming and being part of the group and allowing us to help you collapse time to get what you want, and kind of hold your hand and be with you on this journey. Like it's so fun. Our group is for men and women. We take men and women. We have got couples in there. We've got all kinds of people who just want to live an outstanding life, and they want to be surrounded by other people who are making the moves and doing the things, and really learning the skills and have being coached deeply with accountability, like on the path. It's great. So if this interests you, message me and let's get you started and let's get you truly living, loving the life that you're living so you can manifest more of that. Sometimes we say, you know, or like the idea of, I want more. Like I'll say like, don't you just want more? And sometimes I think if our life is in shambles, when someone says to you, don't you want more? We think, no, F no, I don't want more shambles. Like we think more means more shambles. More actually means more abundance, more love, more joy, more, you receive more the more you let go. And sometimes I was just talking to another client about this the other day is, you know, sometimes letting like the more that you let go, the higher you rise. It's like taking off the weight, and sometimes that weight is just the stories we have in our head, the beliefs, like a belief of like I can't do this. That's a weight on your shoulder that we can take off, you know? Stories in your head that says, oh no, my life won't change because XYZ, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, that's a story and a weight on your shoulder. Like, let's remove that and replace it with something lighter, like gratitude, love. Let, your life doesn't always like the shifts that you want start internal. So let's get it going. Let's start moving. Let's do this. And I just love you. Thank you again for listening. I am going to leave it at that. But if you are interested, send me a message. Let's talk. And I hope to see you again. I love you all so much. Thank you for listening.